fear, the high priest asked the woman where she lived, and, upon being told, said she must not go back to that filthy place. The girl said she was expecting to have the woman stay at her house, and arm in arm they left the room. When we were all seated, the dishes were placed on the table as though by unseen hands. At this, we saw the priest start and look around in wonderment. But when the edibles began to arrive in the same way, he turned to Emal's mother, who was seated at his right hand, and asked if this was a regular occurrence with them, saying that he had never been privileged to witness this before. He turned to Emal, who was interpreting for us, as though he would like some explanation. Then Emal explained that they were able to use the same power that was used to heal the blind woman, to bring forth all that they needed. It was quite plain that he was still puzzled, but he said no more until the meal was well under way. He arose and, with Jast acting as interpreter, said, "I believe I can see more deeply than I imagined human beings could be privileged to see. Although my whole life has been spent in the order of the priesthood, in which, as I supposed, I was serving my fellow men, I observed now that I was but serving self far more than I was serving my brother. How this brotherhood has been extended tonight, and my vision has followed that extension. I am just now allowed to see what a narrow life we are living, that we have lived despising everyone but our own people. This vision allows me to see that you are of the sublime as well as we, and what a celestial joy that vision allows me to behold." Here he paused with his hands half upraised, while a look of surprise and pleasure flooded his countenance. He stood in that position for a moment, then he said, "This is nonsense. I can and will speak in the language you speak. Why can I not do this? I see what your thoughts were when you told me that there was no limit to man's ability to express. I find that I can speak directly to you so that you may understand." He paused for a moment as though to pick up the thread of thought, then spoke without the aid of an interpreter. We were told afterwards that this was the first time he had spoken English. He continued, "How beautiful it is to be able to speak directly to you in your own language. With the broader vision this has given me, I am consumed with wonder as to why men look upon any of their brothers as enemies. It comes so clearly that we must be of the same family, the same source, the same cause. Would that not determine that there was room for all? If one brother chooses to see differently than we do, why should we say that he must perish? I see we cannot interfere, for if we interfere, we but retard our own development and isolate ourselves. If we do this, our house will fall and crumble about our own heads. Now I see, instead of a limited race, a universal, eternal, limitless all coming from the one and returning to the one. I see that your Jesus and our Buddha live by the same light. Their lives, as well as all others who live in and by that same light, must merge into the one. I am beginning to see where it all converges. The crystal clear light is shedding its radiance over me. I believe that man elevates himself to a regal position, but often when he has gained that position, he can no more see his brother as regal. He wishes to be regal himself, and his brother to be the serf. Why did that child place her hands on the eyes of that dear one whose eyes were closed? I see now that it was because that child saw more deeply than I, who should have had more knowledge. It is what you call a mighty love. It is the same which caused Jesus and Buddha to stand together, at which I did wonder, but I wonder no longer. Now I see that it does no harm to include you all, for as we include you, we have the good that you have, and that can but benefit us. I can see that the power which will always protect you will protect me. The armor that protects me will in the same way protect you. If it protects you and me, it must protect all. The dividing line has disappeared. What a celestial truth! I see your thought when you say the world is God's world, and the near and far places are His. If we see the near and far places together, they will be the same to us. We live in a place surrounded by our own world, not seeing the fact that outside our little world, the whole wide world surrounds us, and that world will help us if we will let it. Then to think that God surrounds one and all. I now see the Holy Brother's thought when he said the doors are to be thrown wide to those who are ready to receive. It is said that man shall not only give ear, but he shall become that which he claims to be, and, knowing self, he shall be immersed in the brotherhood of man. It is deeds, not fine words, that endure. I can see that the way of progress is not only barred by the creeds of others, but by those of ourselves. Each is directly claiming the graces of the Most High, each attempting to build up his own by dismantling and tearing down all others. Instead of using energy to tear down, that energy should go to consolidate the whole. The Most High not only made one nation of one life, but of one life all the nations of the earth. The time has now come when we must choose between creeds and the brotherhood of man. Creeds are but the conjurings of man. The faith that moves mountains still slumbers in the seed of the plan. The height and grandeur are still there for man to obtain. The law of enlightenment has preceded that of miracles. This law of enlightenment is the higher law of love, and love is the universal brotherhood. I now see that all that is needed is for each to return to the fountain of his own religion, to remove all false interpretations and cast out all selfishness. In each will be found the pure gold of the alchemist, the wisdom of the Most High, your God and my God, not many gods of many people, just one God. It is the same God who spoke to Moses from out of the burning bush, the same God of whom Jesus spoke when he said that through prayer he could summon legions to sustain him in his hour of mortal struggle in doing the work the Father had given him to do. The same God to whom Peter prayed when he was released from prison. I now see the mighty power that can be summoned to the aid of those who will cooperate in the brotherhood of a concentrated life. Here he raised a glass and held it for a moment in the palm of his hand. He became very still, and the glass crumbled to dust. Then he continued, "The armies before Jericho knew of this power when they blew their trumpets, and the walls of the city fell. Paul and Silas knew of it when they released themselves from prisons." Again he stood a moment in perfect silence. The building rocked and swayed, great tongues of lightning flashed, and the two great masses of rock became detached from the mountainside about a mile away and came rumbling down into the valley below. The villagers came running from their houses in terror, and we could scarcely restrain ourselves from doing the same, so violently did the building rock and sway. Then he lifted his hand. All became quiet, and he continued, "Of what avail are armies or navies when man knows that God has this power, and that his true sons may use it? You can sweep an army away as a child blows the down from a thistle. As for great battleships, they may be dissolved like this glass." Here he lifted the plate upon which he had deposited the powder that now represented the glass. He breathed upon it lightly. It burst into flames and disappeared.